How does a person go missing in a place where you're surrounded by people, cameras, and bright lights? That question sits at the center of a winter mystery that unfolded in Mont-Tremblant, Quebec, a resort village usually associated with skiing, nightlife, and tourists, not unanswered disappearances. In February of 2025, a 22-year-old named Liam Toman traveled there with friends for a short ski trip. By the end of that weekend, he would be gone. No warning, no explanation, and no trail. Just a point in time where he existed, and then a point where he didn't. The details matter, not because they're dramatic, but because they highlight how ordinary everything seemed before it unraveled. Liam was not someone drifting through life. He had completed training in electrical technology and was at the stage where young adults begin piecing together careers, independence, and adulthood. People who knew him describe a social, light-hearted, dependable young man, the type who returned calls, showed up for plans, and handled his responsibilities. He didn't fit the profile of someone about to vanish on purpose. The trip itself was simple, a winter weekend with friends to ski, relax, and enjoy the resort atmosphere. They booked rooms at La Tour des Voyageurs 2, a hotel located straight inside the pedestrian village. Close to the lifts, close to the restaurants, and close to everything that mattered. Mont-Tremblant is designed like a winter theme park. Compact, walkable, and heavily trafficked. It's the kind of environment where someone should be seen by dozens of strangers without even trying. Which makes the disappearance feel even stranger. The first day passed with nothing out of place. Skiing during daylight hours, food, conversation, and the kind of easy comfort familiar to anyone who has taken a weekend trip with friends. It was the final night that shifted the direction of the story. Around late evening, the group headed to a bar known for its nightlife, a noisy, crowded spot where tourists blend with seasonal workers and where laughter and music spill through doorways into the cold air outside. The village was alive, people moving between bars, snow reflecting off street lamps, puffs of warm breath in the freezing air. It was the kind of night where danger feels far away. Inside the bar, the group drank, socialized, and enjoyed themselves. No arguments, no dramatic behavior, nothing that would foreshadow anything more than sore legs from skiing and a mild hangover the next morning. But somewhere after 2:30 a.m., a small choice changed everything. The group decided to walk back to the hotel. Liam didn't. He told them he would stay a bit longer. The hotel was only a short walk away, inside a pedestrian-only area, and surrounded by other people heading home for the night. There was no reason to imagine that decision would become pivotal. His friends assumed they would see him in the room later. They assumed he would make the short walk back. They assumed the night would end in routine. Those assumptions would become the final moment any friend would see Liam again. From that point forward, the comfortable bubble of a ski resort turned into the setting of a mystery. Within the next hour, Liam would leave the bar, move through the village, and head toward the hotel. And then his trail would go cold. No struggle, no witness reports, no immediate signs of danger, just absence. And in cases like this, it's not the dramatic moments that trouble people most. It's the quiet ones. Because disappearing in the wilderness is easy. Disappearing in a crowded resort is something else entirely. Liam eventually left the bar and stepped back out into the winter air. It was sometime after 2:30 in the morning, the hour when the village begins to thin out, when music fades behind closed doors, and when the cold becomes sharper than people remember. The night wasn't empty, but it was shifting. The chaos of the evening was giving way to a quieter kind of movement. Somewhere during this walk, Liam was seen with two seasonal workers, not friends, not roommates, not people from his group, individuals he hadn't arrived with. Their presence isn't suspicious by itself. Mont-Tremblant is full of seasonal staff during the winter months, young adults from across Canada and abroad who live and work in the resort for a season. Interactions between visitors and workers aren't rare, but in this case, they were the last confirmed individuals to be in his proximity before he vanished. There is surveillance footage of Liam moving through the pedestrian village. The cameras capture him walking, heading in the general direction of the hotel. But the building he was supposed to return to is never shown receiving him. No footage shows him entering the lobby, stepping into an elevator, or swiping a keycard. That absence is subtle but alarming. Shortly after 3 in the morning, he sent a text message that read, "Meet me outside." It's brief. It's vague. It raises more questions than it answers. Was he reaching out to one of the friends he had been with earlier? Was he attempting to meet someone else? Or was he disoriented, trying to get his bearings? The text is the last digital sign of him. Beyond that moment, Liam seems to dissolve into the night. No social media activity, no calls, no transactions, no signals that he left the area willingly or had the means to. For a young adult in 2025, digital silence is rarely accidental. Morning came, and his absence didn't immediately raise alarm. Friends assumed he slept elsewhere in the hotel or returned late and crashed without making noise. That assumption cost precious hours, a reality that plays out in countless missing persons cases. It's never obvious that someone is missing until the moment it becomes undeniable. By midday, messages and calls went unanswered. Concern replaced convenience. Eventually, parents were contacted, and the worry that had been quietly growing in the background became sharp and urgent. When authorities became involved, the response was immediate. Mont-Tremblant is surrounded by dense forest, steep slopes, and terrain that becomes unforgiving in winter. Police and search teams combed through wooded areas, ravines, and snowbanks. Helicopters scanned from above, drones covered ground that was difficult to reach, and tracking dogs attempted to follow any trace. But the searches produced nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no dropped items, no sign that Liam left the village boundaries on his own. It was as if the trail simply ended, not in the woods, not on a road, not in the hotel, but somewhere in between those points where logic insists there should have been something. Weeks later, a single object would break that silence: Liam's wallet. It was discovered in a parking area, and inside were his identification and his hotel room keycard. The wallet did not solve anything. If anything, it sharpened the uncertainty. It suggested movement, but it didn't explain direction. It suggested possession, but it didn't explain by whom. The wallet raised the uncomfortable possibility that Liam did not simply wander off. It raised the possibility that someone else played a role, whether through harm, negligence, or silence. At this point, the disappearance had shifted from confusion to something colder. Because disappearing into the wilderness is one kind of mystery. Disappearing within feet of hotels, cameras, and people is another. When a young person goes missing, people always ask the same question first: what could have happened? But with enough time, that question changes. It becomes colder, heavier, and far more difficult to sit with. It becomes, how could this have happened at all? Because Liam didn't disappear in a remote wilderness or an isolated back road. He vanished in a place built for tourism, packed with businesses, hotels, cameras, employees, guests, and lights. A place where people do not simply slip out of view, and yet, here we are. At this stage of the story, what remains are theories, not because speculation is entertaining, but because the absence of hard answers forces the mind to search for patterns. There is the accidental route, the idea that Liam took a wrong turn, became disoriented, and succumbed to the environment. Winter weather can turn lethal quickly. Hypothermia is silent. Snow hides evidence. And in the middle of the night, judgment can falter. It's a simple explanation, almost too simple. Then there is the misadventure scenario, where a series of small, unlucky decisions compound into tragedy. A slip near a trail, a fall into a concealed ravine. Again, possible. But with the scale of the search that followed, many investigators quietly question why nothing was found. And then there is the possibility people are most reluctant to speak out loud, that another person may have played a role. The wallet showing up later, intact, containing items Liam was known to carry, challenges the idea that he simply wandered off into the woods. Items do not often travel on their own, and someone who collapses from the cold does not typically relocate his own belongings. Police have not publicly accused anyone. The investigation remains open. But the silence is painful, and for families, silence is its own kind of torment. Because the hardest part of a disappearance is not the loss, it's the not knowing. It's the mental loop with no endpoint. The constant recalculation of what could have happened, the fear that the truth may exist in someone's memory and they've chosen to keep it there. People assume time softens these wounds. In reality, time sharpens them. When days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and months into a year, hope does not disappear. It mutates. It becomes hope for answers instead of hope for outcomes. Today, Liam's case remains active. He is still listed as a missing person. His family continues to push for visibility, for answers, and for the simple dignity of closure. And authorities continue to ask for information, because cases like this do not go cold due to lack of importance. They go cold due to lack of voices. So here's the part where the story reaches outside the screen and into the real world. If you were in Mont-Tremblant on the weekend of February 1st to 2nd, 2025, if you worked there, lived there, or visited there, and you remember anything unusual, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it seemed at the time, someone needs to hear it. If you have information or even a detail you're unsure matters, you can contact the Sûreté du Québec at 1-800-659-4264. You can also submit information anonymously if you are uncomfortable coming forward directly. Because endings don't write themselves, someone has to speak for them. And somewhere out there, a family is still waiting to hear the truth.